the, whoever it was.
Oh, no.
That was so. Oh, and another, that was full of anecdotes that day. Some student's boyfriend was driving us down to town to get supper after her amazing reading, and he said, I heard Robert Lowell read a few months ago. It was the best poetry reading I ever heard in my whole life. And she was wonderful. She said, she said, that'll be enough of that.
That's great. That's great.
So now you know what to say if you're ever in that
I'm right
situation.
about
Yeah. It's
That's
just wonderful.
beautiful.
Yeah. Kevin, yeah.
I have a question. I guess it was about 15 years ago. I had a life in the city. You guys,
Oh, yeah.
but I remember talking to you, and I don't remember why, and that's not an important question, but I remember you saying that you didn't write for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And I wondered, was that difficult not to write for 5 years? And when that 5-year time period was over, was it easy? Was it joyous for you to get back into it?
It was wonderful to get back into it. It came slowly to get back into it, but it was wonderful. And the 5 years not writing was difficult, partly socially, because a lot of my friends were poets, and we used to exchange work, and I didn't have any work, and I didn't want to see theirs, because I was so heart sore. And so that was hard, a little lonely, and I didn't know if I'd ever write again. And I had sort of the good part and the bad part, I suppose, were all one. I was, and I think I've said this in interviews, but I'll just repeat it anyway, that I was, in my own mind, my identity had been being a writer. For as long as I could remember, I thought of myself, oh, I'm a writer. And I also thought I was, from, I suppose, being in college or something, I was always with some guy. So neither of those things were true anymore. I was not with any guy, and I was not writing poetry. But the good news was that after that 5 years of that, it turned out I was still here. And so that I could shift a little in who I thought I was. That was very good.
Did it enhance your writing, do you think? That way off?
Well, it's been a lot easier since then. I don't know if it's because I stopped, but it's been much more carefree since then. I was less anxious after I started again. Maybe I valued it more. I don't know.
There's a different, I think you can see, if
Yeah.
that gap is the 10 years between
Yeah.
those two books,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
there's a different play spirit. It's much more
Yeah.
supple and
Yeah.
yeah. you
Yeah,
can hear it.
this book in here called Home Deep Blues.
Yeah,
I
it's
selected that I did, but I had about 20 new poems in that. Those are the ones where I was feeling better. Yeah, less, less tearing my hair about the poetry, which was nice. Don't know if it made them better or worse. Yeah.
You mentioned about living through two centuries, and I was wondering, what are your predictions for poetry in the 21st century?
Oh, I don't know. But I do think, someone asked me the other night at one of these things, whether I thought poetry was in a good way now, and I certainly do. And I remember Miss Bishop, when they asked her that, she thought poetry was terrible. She had grown up with a lot of giants, certainly, and lived with a lot of giant poets, but I think poetry is wonderful now. I think there are a lot of wonderful, wonderful poets writing today. So I can't predict the century, God knows. But right now, I think there are a lot of wonderful, wonderful poets. And of course, they're all teaching, so you can go and work with all of them. Just about all of them are teaching someplace. Yeah.
Do you think poetry is about communicating or telling the truth or capturing beauty?
I didn't hear the last part.
Capturing beauty?
Yes, all those things. I do. I really do. I think each one of those things.
Do you ever find that any of those are at odds with one another?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I try not to think about communicating. Because then, but that's just me, I want to communicate, of course. I think that's what it is. But I try not to think, would anybody understand this as I'm writing it? for the reasons we've talked about. But, yeah, I think something can be beautiful and not true. I'm not sure something can be true and not beautiful, yeah. Those two can often be at odds. And also, I think that something, I mean, whether something communicates or not is such a question, because it's going to communicate to somebody. I mean, there are people who say that Ceylon is not communicating, but he's communicating. He has tossed the note in the bottle into the sea. It's just whether anybody's picking it up, whether it's landing somewhere. I really do feel that. Is that the kind of thing you meant? Or somewhat.
Anybody else have questions? I have one question. Have you ever been in a workshop as a participant, having your work
That
discussed?
dream guy,
Yeah.
that guy who suggested dreams. I was in a
Yeah.
workshop with him. Yeah.
And how was that?
And the other guy, Bill Alford, had a. It's called English C, and everybody was writing, fiction, poetry, plays, nonfiction, anything they wanted. And Bill Alford felt so sorry for all of us that he read everything in his own voice and didn't say who it was.
Yeah, that's
Because he thought we were so shy that we couldn't bear it. And of course, in about 2 weeks, you knew who everybody was.
Right. That would be interesting to try here, actually. Anonymous workshops,
Mm.
where you don't know who it is. But I was just thinking, if Paul Celan workshopped his poems, so I just wondered what your experience of that was.
I don't remember, that one. I mean, I don't remember either of those ones.
Yeah.
And then I was in Lowell's office hours later. That was rather chaotic. So, but very good people were in it. Frank Bedart was in it, and Alan Williamson and Ann Winters, and some good poets from that time. And
So this is a bunch of people sitting at once?
yeah, it was what Lowell called, I think I spoke about this last night, his office hours. And it was like a poetry workshop. And usually maybe 20 people, and some of the people changed because they came in and out of town. But actually, that was run more autocratically. Lowell would say he'd say what he thought. He'd read the poem, then I think he'd ask us what we thought. People would say what they thought. But his interest in what we were doing was limited, I have to say. But when he favored you, it was quite wonderful. Again, it was very encouraging to me. He favored me, so I was very encouraged. But I didn't like it as teaching because it wasn't good teaching. He'd pick out a couple people who he really thought were wonderful, and he was very vague and preoccupied, and didn't have a lot of interest in it at that point in his life. That was quite late in his life. But I was very happy because he liked my work. But it wasn't good teaching. I don't know. The others would say things occasionally to you, but not too much. So it wasn't the kind of experience you have here.
Right. Maybe time for one more question?
Well, I had a question. You said this thing about hostility of class, and Elizabeth Bishop triggered this sort of thing inside you, and they were capturing something, not something that the way you would write, but something you felt close to. And I was thinking about that poem about James Wright that you have, and you say,
Yeah.
he knows you better than you know you. And I know I've read poets, and then I feel like they know me
Yeah.
better than you. And I'm wondering if I was getting the sentiment right, or you were speaking about like them literally speaking up.
Yeah, I knew him, but I didn't feel that about him. But, there's truth and beauty. I don't know if it's beauty, but it's not truth. I didn't feel that he knew me, literally, Jim Wright knew me better than I knew myself, but I did feel that he was a great poet, and that he knew things.
Yeah.
He knew things. So you could feel, if you took that and turned it sideways a little bit, you could feel he knew you better than you knew yourself. But it wasn't quite true of Jim and me,
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I think there's so many people who, they sort of light you up, whether you want to go that way or not, or even could. they kind of light you up with possibility. For instance, Plath. I wrote a poem about her, which I called something or other. I don't remember what I called it, but I said nobody ever wrote like that before or talked like that before, whatever. I felt that when she came along. I mean, there are people probably, but a woman my own age to talk with the candor that she talked with was a miracle to a lot of us. But to a lot of us women that age, at that time. Bishop, it was different. She's not candid, but she's certainly good. She has her ways that are so wonderful, but she's rather reserved. And I think even Bishop being as reserved as she was made someone like Plath even more of a bright light, in terms of what's really going on, It's very different to be, at that time, to be a woman of 30 or someone like Lowell, who was a man, I suppose, of 47 or something like that, 45, something like that. And, of course, he was Lowell, but I felt more of a connection. Because, I think, as I talked about a little last night, it was a real kind of turning point for women, and for many other minorities. I don't want to leave that out. So it was important in ways that you will feel, but about different things. It was important. Well, thank you so much. I think
Yes, thank you, Jean.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah, wonderful to have given me all this work and time.
And as you know, Jean will be reading tonight at 6:30 in the Suzanne Waterwright Theater. Great. See you there.